Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sabbath Rest Book Talk, where fiction is good for you. My name is Erin McCole Cupp. I'm the author of the Jane E. Friendless Orphan series, a cyberpunk retelling of the story of Jane Eyre. For those of you who have oddly specific tastes, I've got a little something for you. I'd also like to introduce you to our special guest tonight that my youngest daughter asked me to bring along. I'd like to introduce you to, oh goodness, I forgot her name. She wanted me to have Digibird be part of our talk tonight. So she's our little guest. I'm gonna have her. Shh. Okay, there you go. Good job, little Digibird. Digibird's just gonna kind of hang out here. I can't really figure out a way to have Digibird in the screen the whole time. So
now I can't show this to my children because I'll have two of those things up here with me next month.
Singing to each other. Everybody, that was Carolyn Astfalk. Carolyn, go ahead and say hi.
Hello.
Carolyn has something really exciting for those of you with young adult readers at home. Carolyn's new book, her third book, just launched yesterday, and it's called Rightfully Ours. So Carolyn, you want to do a quick little plug for Rightfully Ours?
Sure.
Yes.
Relatively
captive.
It's a coming-of-age story, and I hope it can be enjoyed by adults as well as teens. And it has a little bit of suspense, a little bit of adventure, and basically a treasure hunt. But there's some other things going on there, too, with a teenage relationship and really discovering what authentic treasure is and whether you're entitled to it, whether you take it, and what's really of value and how you live that way. So that's it.
Well, great. Congratulations. It sounds like some really complex themes. I just started reading on it yesterday because honestly, I was backed up and I hadn't finished reading one of our selections for tonight by the time yesterday had rolled around. Pardon me. And actually, at this point, I'm going to pause before I introduce Rebecca. I have to apologize to all our listeners. I have either an old cold that came back or a brand new cold. So I'm pulling out all of my voice and diction class tricks on how to try to talk around that. Thank you, Dr. Balfans, who will strangle me if I actually call him Dr. Balfans on TV. Thank you, Gary, for 20 some years ago of training. But yeah, so there's Rightfully Ours by Carolyn Astfalk. Go check that out. And then we have Rebecca coming in from the great state of Michigan. Rebecca, why don't you go ahead and say hi?
Hello, it's Rebecca. Yes, the great.
What did I call you?
You called me Rebecca.
Okay. That's a relief.
Yeah, I just repeated my name. It's all good.
Okay, Rebecca is an editor, and she also works for the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist. So she's
you got it right.
Of course, I got that right. I'm a Dominican. I better get that right. I would be ashamed of myself, and I would be probably publicly ashamed by others if I didn't get that right. So, thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight. A little word about tonight's focus. At Sabbath Rest Book Talk, for those of you who are not familiar, we take one night a month to talk about the value of fiction, how fiction makes us human, makes us more than just animals, and why it's valuable to us as human persons. So we celebrate how fiction is not a to-do list. It's something that gets you to examine the human experience more closely. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is self-sacrifice. For those of us who practice the liturgical season of Lent, today starts what we call Passion Tide, the last 2 weeks of the Western tradition of Lent, where we prepare for Easter with an increased focus on denying ourselves, not necessarily focusing on making ourselves feel better, but doing what is right for others and not focusing on ourselves so much. So that's why I thought tonight would be a good time to talk about fiction that illustrates that concept of giving of self. And I'm especially interested in hearing everybody's take on the giving tree, but I want to just because I guess I like conflict, I want to save that for last. So I'm curious to hear your ladies' thoughts on giving tree. But let's start at the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's start tonight with The Well by Stephanie Landsem. It's her first book in the Living Water series. Rebecca's volunteered to be our Vanna White for our books tonight. So Rebecca, take it away.
Okay, so this is The Well by Stephanie Landsem. I'm not from the right era to do the Vanna White imitation. Sorry.
No, that's all right. All you have to do is hold the book up. That's the one I actually have. My other one is on Kindle. I Am Margaret I have on Kindle, and The Giving Tree, I think one of my kids has it. So anyway, we're glad Rebecca's got all of our things. So let's talk about the well. It is the story of the woman at the well from the Bible. And what I like is that it's not told from that woman's perspective. It's told from the perspective of her daughter, Mara. Maybe it's pronounced Mara, but in my head, I'm Irish, so I'm calling her Mara, whatever. Anyway, so, and I like the twist on the character Shem. What do you guys think? Should we spoil who Shem is? Because is that kind of part of the story?
For the story.
Okay, so we won't spoil who Shem is. Shem's a big player. We'll put it that way. In like all of biblical history. Now, what Stephanie does with the Living Water series. Oh my gosh, I said water. That's how we say WATER. The Living Water series. Yo. What I like about what she does is that Mara has had so much in the way of self-sacrifice demanded of her through her entire life. So it it shows how toxic it can be having a parent who does not set herself aside at all. So I kind of liked how that, was shown, and how Mara kind of takes it on herself to grow into that whole, that she has to take it on. And instead of it being, it's at first it's a duty, it's this survival mechanism, the self-sacrifice, but then it becomes something greater than that through her journey with Shem, to find the man that everybody's hoping is the Messiah. All right, so I've done my talk. Who else wants to chime in on the well?
I guess I'd say I've found, in just thinking about the well and in other books I've read, I've noticed that what draws me most, what gives me like this clench in my heart or actually makes me cry, which isn't very easy to do, is sacrificial love. And this book just had me at the end, I think I was crying, and there's just something, I guess it's an echo of, the sacrificial love that's saved us, but it just resonates with me so much and moves me the way this book did.
Yeah, I have to say, The Well is one of the books that had me crying the most. The day I finished it, I tweeted a picture of the Winter Soldier from the Avenger movies with all the mascara. I'm sorry, it's not mascara, it's anti-reflection a supply or product or whatever. But anyway, I'm like, I looked like the Winter Soldier because I had worn mascara to mass that day, and I was like, oh my, it was a nightmare. But yeah, it was really cute. And what's that?
I'm so glad I'm not the only one that cried at the end.
No, I think if you don't cry at the end, because so many people give up so many things of themselves to help others at the end of this book, that's when I was thinking self-sacrifice. This was the first book I thought of before of anything else. Excuse me. Rebecca, go ahead and tell us what made you cry about the well.
I think what made me cry was actually the character of Enosh at the end.
Yes.
Because you get this, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, and there's really so many people have given so many things, and there still isn't a solution. It just takes one more character to just give of himself, ask for a similar giving of himself in return from Mara, to wrap things up and give it a happy ending, or a happy-ish ending.
Yeah, I had a feeling as that character of Enosh was introduced, I'm like, you know what? He's sort of he was sort of in the background, and sort of they're deliberately we weren't supposed to look at him, and I'm like, I bet there's a red herring going on here. Something awesome is going to happen with him, and Stephanie delivered. He really, and I'm just thinking of it, how self-sacrifice can make even the least likely hero a hero. Carolyn, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
No, just that, there's so many, and it's been a while since I've read it, so I'm struggling with some of it to remember, but there's everybody's sacrifice there. And even though Enosh is essentially getting what he desired, it's still sacrificial because this isn't, all the way that it was supposed to have happened, probably in his mind. It's all altogether different.
Yeah, and I think that's the what sacrifice, the resurrection never looks the way we expect it to.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's just another taking of a story and showing that, of a story that shows a resurrection at the end in narrative, specifically about the Bible. I think in our hearts, that's what we're looking for in story. We're looking for the value of giving of ourselves for something bigger than ourselves, and knowing that it will change us for the better in the end. So, and I think Stephanie did that really, really well. Rebecca, I want to go to you next so we can talk about I Am Margaret, because you're sort of our resident YA expert. And this was YA. It was because I am super duper edgy, parents. Okay, so don't go in expecting that it's, I don't know, The Little Princess or something, because it's not. Rebecca, take it away.
Yeah. I was going to say, reading this again, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure I'd give this to anyone under 16. I'd make sure that they were, and parents like me, I would read it first to make sure your kids are good for it. But it's a really cool story. So I Am Margaret. Here's the cover. It's sort of a little bit based on the story of St. Margaret Clitheroe, which is one of the reasons I love it, because I'm like an Elizabethan English Catholic Requiem nerd. I also really like dystopian fiction, and this is like both in one, and it's fantastic. So
it's like the Reese's peanut butter cup of what Rebecca likes to read, and it kind of is too for me. So, two great tastes that taste great together. So this it's essentially the story of it's a girl hero, really, who is able to. And it actually plays it. Sorry, I'm like, my mind's going 3 different directions of all the things I want to talk about. So you all say something, and then I can play off of you. Otherwise, I'm gonna like try to spend 10 minutes telling you everything I like. Okay, that's more than fair. Carolyn, do you want to dive in?
Sure. When I think about the book, and obviously Margot is the most obvious self-sacrificial character. But the scene that really sticks in my mind from this book is Bane, who does not believe what Margaret believes, but constantly puts himself at risk for love of her, even so much as that when he brings her the Eucharist on Easter, and he doesn't even believe what she believes it is, but he's willing to take that risk for her. And that just stood out in like one of the most beautiful, loving things I've seen characters do.
Yeah, that was a really neat scene. And it was interesting to think of how Corinna Turner showed a world where Jesus loves us so much that not only is he willing to become bread, he's willing on Easter Sunday to be wrapped up in a tissue with a rock and shot from what was it, like some sort of air gun or a bow and arrow. I don't know. Catapulted. It was catapulted onto a facility just to be with his people. And I'm like, you know what? I buy that. I totally buy that. God, that's how much he loves us. It's not. It could have been done in a really irreverent way, and it wasn't. So that was really cool. I also what I really, really loved about I Am Margaret was when towards the beginning, Margaret has this prayer that she's struggling to pray that's called the Prayer of Acceptance. And it is about, I can't remember the exact words, but God, I accept whatever death you have in mind for me. And I'm like, I don't even want to read the prayer in the book, much less, especially since I knew it was going to happen. Or you could kind of sense like this is the biggest fear. And what a good writer does is they take their character and they make them face their biggest fear. Mm-hmm. And she did that so powerfully that the idea of that this character Margaret was willing to, do this, face everything that was the worst possible scenario. And Corinna Turner really just kept amping up the suspense throughout this entire story. So it was pretty much impossible to put down. I was finishing it yesterday when I was doing a book booth at a men's conference sort of locally, and people kept coming up and like, go away, I want to read this book. I was just thinking it in my head. I didn't say it out loud. I self-sacrificed. I put myself aside so I could talk to people. But I really liked how. So so many different characters were giving so much of themselves. Even Jonathan, because give up his own romantic aspirations, I guess, for the sake of you know, a higher calling, I guess. I don't want to give too much away. All right, who else wants to talk about I Am Margaret a little more? Rebecca, you had something to say, right?
Well, it was funny to me reading this in the context of preparing for our discussion, because the big, what turns the plot is Margaret's writing. And the fact that she chooses to write something that's going to shake up the world, it's going to put her in danger, even more danger than she's in already. And she chooses to use her gift will bring truth to the world. And it was really interesting because at one point she doesn't want to write the book. She doesn't want to send it in, but she realizes that she's not doing it for herself. And in order to send that book in, sending the book in and that prayer of acceptance are twinned in her mind.
That's really true. I see that. And how she's, like I said, it's the typical hero's call, you know, in order to, you know, do what must be done, I must put myself on the line, and I don't want to do that. And how much of that is, like, basically every hero's journey is the journey of self-sacrifice. And I like how Margaret was she's, you know, you always hear so much, we need strong female characters, and she was, but she wasn't the typical strong female character. Her strength was in her words and her storytelling. And that was really, really special. Carolyn, did you want to jump in on anything on I Am Margaret?
I think what struck me too about the sacrificial nature there is that it's not academic to Margaret. Everything is visceral and real. She knows exactly what might be required of her because she's had to witness it. So there's no pussyfooting around what may happen or what may not. And to me, it's really made it more intense and, you know, really scary. Like you said, you don't want to read that prayer because you know exactly what what her fate could be. So I think Corinna did a great job with that as well.
Yeah, you know, I just realizing for people who haven't actually read the book, we didn't talk at all. I mean, The Well is about the story of the woman at the well and, you know, the people in her life. We didn't talk about what I Am Margaret is about. I Am Margaret is a dystopian YA fiction that takes place in, I'll say England, because it does seem pretty specifically English, especially in reference to St. Margaret Clitheroe, where I want to say England, not Britain. So my kids who are watching and are Anglophiles, if I said that wrong, you can pick on me later. Thanks. Anyway, where children, I mean, it is children, at age 16, I believe, not 18, 16. It's 18. They take a test at 18. And if they pass, they're permitted to go on to adulthood. And if they do not pass, then they are sent to this reassignee facility where at the end of 2 years, they will be anesthetized and basically broken up into parts so that the people who are living and are of value to society will be able to benefit from their parts and live on longer, which is kind of feeling like the direction we're going now. Our culture doesn't really bat an eye at deciding at what point a human is small enough that we don't really care about them and they can be turned into something that's more productive in our eyes. And so she takes that, Corinna Turner takes that a step further with I Am Margaret. And, you know, you could say, well, slippery slope arguments are logical fallacies, but so often we see them happen in life. So it's a cautionary tale for sure. And I'm looking forward to the next part. And I think it's a 5-book series. Rebecca, do you know how many books are in the series off the top?
I think it's 4.
It's 4. Okay, it's four books in the series. So
yeah, I think the last one was just released recently.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Readers, look up Corinna
they're
Turner.
kind of my babies.
It's 2 N's in Corinna, and Turner like somebody who turns. That one's not hard to spell. Nice British name. Anyway, excuse me. So let's go. We're trailing towards our end. Let's talk a little bit about the Giving Tree. Now, in college, one of my first directing experience, I was a theater major for people who don't know. And one of my first directing experiences was I directed a student piece of The Giving Tree. And so it's something that I just about have memorized. And The Giving Tree always seems to make people either really, really happy or really, really angry. Like, people either see that The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein is about the harsh realities of loving someone more than you love yourself, or it's about the toxic relationships that occur when you have a narcissist in your life. So, as for those of you who don't know, it's about a tree who loved a little boy, and every day the boy would come and gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest, and so on and so on. I won't repeat the whole book, but
you really do have it memorized.
I have it memorized. Don't challenge me on The Giving Tree. So it's okay. So which of those sides do you guys fall on? Do you think it's, just an illustration of the harsh realities of self-sacrificial love, or do you think it's like celebrating the toxic? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
All right. Go for it, Carolyn.
Well, I think I read this when my son was younger, but I'd kind of forgotten. And I checked it out of the library again and read it with my smaller kids. And, I was looking with an eye to self-sacrifice. So I was sort of reading it through that lens. But my daughter, my 9-year-old, she did not like this. She was bothered by it. And I think it made her unhappy. She just didn't like the whole thing. So I think she was more the toxic end, although she probably couldn't express it that way. But I was looking at it, more as self-sacrifice, and more from the tree's perspective of what really struck me is that tree, you'd think it had nothing left to give, but there was always something more. So I wasn't kind of looking at it as an unbalanced relationship. I was just looking from the tree's perspective more of, look, there's still more to give. So.
Yeah, I see that when you have a spirit of love and not a spirit of taking what's yours, taking what belongs to you, or what you perceive belongs to you, then you have more to give because you don't see those limits. And toward the end of the story, when the boy, who is now an old man, has nothing left to want, really, that's almost when he can give. That's when he's at the point where he can give of himself and basically be what the tree wanted all along. Rebecca, do you want to chime? Which end of the spectrum do you align with?
I'm not sure where I sit, because my first experience of The Giving Tree was, I think it was some sort of like homeschool recital, or I think it was a recital. Anyway, they were acting out The Giving Tree. And I just remember as this like 6 or 7-year-old being very disturbed by this story. So I hadn't experienced it again until I just picked it up and read it on Saturday. And it's kind of both, because like on the one hand, it was, we so often we want to be filled by others. Like, we look to other people to fulfill us. And I think what I found beautiful about the tree is that she was willing to give, happy in the giving, and not, and while she did want the companionship, she was happy to give and didn't depend on that giving for her own fulfillment.
Yeah. Okay. I see that too. This is neat because, I think I know this story, and, you guys have both said things that I hadn't really considered before, like the joy in the giving, because it's so hard for me to as a very human, not tree-like mom who, homeschools and has them around all the time, which is, it is a gift. And sometimes I lose that joy in giving, of, being able to give, something that a lot of parents just can't. And that, we need to find that joy in the giving because giving is good, not because we're going to get something back out of it. And that in and of itself is what is the beauty and humanity of self-sacrifice, I think. So there is Yeah, you can do a reading of The Giving Tree where it's, you know, toxic and dysfunctional.
I still find it thoroughly depressing, but
Oh yeah, no, there's nobody's saying that this is like a you know, a laugh a minute. It's not Where the Sidewalk Ends, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, so we read a lot of Shel Silverstein back then. I don't know, Carolyn, were you
well, you know,
were
it's making
you
me think
afflicted
of,
with that quite so
I
much?
wasn't, but it's making me think of Puff the Magic Dragon, which was also a sad childhood story.
Yes, it was. That's true.
There's some similarities there.
Rebecca, we won't put you on the spot if you've how familiar are you with Puff the Magic Dragon?
I know the song.
Okay, well that's pretty much the story.
Yeah.
All right, well, anything depressing? Yes, it was depressing.
Yeah.
And but that's the thing, like sort of like the Well by Stephanie Landsem also kind of has that, you know, you've lost everything kind of ending. I hope I'm not giving too much away, because you lose everything but you gain everything, and that's the harsh beauty of self-sacrifice, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Any other last thoughts from you fine ladies before we conclude? Nope. Okay, Carolyn, you want to put in one last plug?
Oh, sure.
Rightfully Ours.
Yeah, Rightfully Ours is available on Amazon right now. It's only on Kindle. Paperback's coming soon. So a coming of age.
Oh, how soon?
Easter week.
How soon? What's your release date for the paperback?
Easter week. I'm not sure which. So somewhere around the maybe 17th, 18th, I think, for paperback.
Great.
Yeah. So and probably you know, just the themes are, there's sexual chastity is a big theme in that book. So, you know, I get that's, again, maybe parents want to read that first, or it's older teens.
All right, that sounds like a good plan. And
I'm looking forward to it because I wrote my thesis on the coming of age story. So
okay.
I'm going to.
All right, excellent. So that's good news. So Carolyn can, or Rebecca you can definitely bring some thought to bear on that. Well, thank you anybody who tuned in tonight, and we will see you next month for May's Sabbath Rest Book Talk. In the meantime, your homework is to read fiction at least once a week. If you've got a Sabbath day in your personal tradition, in your faith tradition, make it that day. Make sure you read fiction once a week because it helps you be more human. Next month, we're going to talk about adventure, and I'm really excited. Rebecca, can you tell us a little bit about The Eagle of the Ninth? Because I'd never even heard of this book before.
Me either.
I love Eagle of the Ninth. So it's a story set in Roman Britain. So it's basically the story of a Roman legionary whose father disappeared with his legion years ago, and his son has been and is on a quest to discover what happened to his father's legion, and in the process makes some friends, finds some love, has a good adventure.
Ooh. Find some love. I didn't see about that one. I was only just reading the
Pretty sure there's a girl involved.
Okay. Well, I'm curious. Well,
my kids have read it.
Will my kids be grossed out by the love story because they are not into romance, but they are into Roman Britain?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, he like meets her at the beginning and comes back to her at the end, but there's not much in the middle.
Okay. Well, I will give them some warning about that. It's a good thing. Okay, and then I'm trying to take a really quick look at what I'm having trouble remembering it. I forgot to write it down before we started tonight. What are our other books for May? I know Eagle of the Ninth is our young adult selection.
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland.
And Discovery.
And Discovery. Discovery by Karina Fabian, and then Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, of course. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The first book. We're doing the first book. We're not doing the whole darn series. Yeah. So there we go, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great month. Read lots of fiction. Be very human. Have a great night. God bless. Ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.